All right, so two kinds of fouls, direct and indirect. The directs are pretty obvious. Okay, it's like any contact essentially between players, or there's the one example of handball, but it basically involves some sort of contact, right? So a couple of these come with the caveat that the contact doesn't actually even have to happen. So if somebody takes a swing or sticks their leg out, in a weird way, looking like they're trying to trip a player, and the attacker manages to like jump over the leg and keep going, you now have to decide whether or not to just play advantage and let them keep going, or you can go ahead and call the foul. That's probably pretty rare. The most obvious one would be like if someone literally throws a punch but doesn't land it, you still want to red card that kid. But again, that's pretty advanced stuff. Not going to happen in a U10. So it's really just, all these other ones. And they give some good examples with some photos. So tripping, this will happen with some regularity. So you should be looking out for that. Um, Jumping at is a little weird, but there are instances, probably more so at the upper level with head balls, that are coming down from the air and players are trying to get into the same area sometimes. Charging is very frequent. So charging took me a long time, and even today, I'm still a little. It's hard in the sense that you hear that charging with the shoulder is okay, but how close does the ball have to be? And charging from behind. So the rules basically are, let's say the blue person has the ball. If that red player comes in and is close enough that in theory they could stick their leg out and stretch and touch the ball, then they are allowed to bump into the blue player with their shoulder, shoulder to shoulder. It's typically, from like the 3 or 9 o'clock angles. You are not allowed to, shoulder charge somebody from the behind. That would be a foul. I will say that, if a kid is kind of stooped over the ball and they're not really running with it, they're protecting it, then the red player would be allowed to kind of shoulder charge a little bit more from behind. You just need to make sure it definitely stays well away from like, getting past the wing bone and getting towards the spine. So it's still shoulder to shoulder. It's just from a little bit further behind. And that's really just because, when the blue player is stooped over the ball, just kind of protecting it or shielding it would be the right term, that there's no way to kind of get side by side, but you are allowed to kind of jostle that blue player and still be legal. Striking doesn't necessarily have to be the full on, I'm throwing at your face. So this picture is also another form of striking, anything that's essentially, going to hurt. Tackling. So this is going to be probably the number one. I mean, any attempt to dispossess the player of the ball is some form of tackling. It's just a weird term for anybody, that watches American football, because that means something totally different. So, here they're trying to stick out the red players sticking out their foot, trying to dispossess the ball, but in this case, they're clearly late. Looks like they're slide tackling here, and so instead of that extended leg getting to the ball, it looks like it's going to trip the blue player's right leg. So call this tripping, call this tackling. It doesn't matter. You don't really have to say what kind it is. You just recognize that it's a foul, and you go ahead and blow your whistle. We're not going to get into careless, reckless, or excessive force, because that is for upper level matches where you would then have to make a decision of possibly issuing a yellow card or a red card. So we will save that for another day, because that should not come into play at all in a U10. And in a U12 match, we also really want to be pretty cautious about giving out those cards and saving those for older kids. Some other instances of direct free kick, holding an opponent, I think you could see at the little kid levels. Grabbing an arm is probably one thing, or holding a jersey. One thing that is interesting about the laws is if two players are just standing next to each other and holding each other's jersey, but neither one of them's going anywhere, that's actually not a foul. The holding has to actually be, preventing or impeding somebody's motion. So that's just kind of an interesting nuance. Spitting, you probably shouldn't see. And then we talked about handling the ball deliberately. And, the whole deliberate versus incidental handling is a whole topic unto itself. So we can decide whether we need to get to that some other point in time. Um, yeah, but here's some of the considerations for that. If the hand goes to the ball versus the other way, that's a good sign that it was handling. If the distance was really far and gave them time to react, you know, you might be a little more forgiving if that was close and somebody kicked the ball and there was pretty much no reaction time to get their hand out of the way. We do want the hands to be kind of in a natural position. So if you think they're in a reasonable spot for what they're doing and the ball gets kicked into their hand, you don't have to call that handling. That is one of the most common things you'll hear from the sidelines probably is complaints about, hey, handball, blah, blah, blah. But handball is very nuanced, you know, given all these criteria that determine whether or not it was deliberate or not. All right, so that I think covers the directs. Before we move on to indirect, anybody got questions on direct free kicks from any of these kind of fouls? Okay. Indirect free kick. So all the indirect free kicks are really some sort of technicality that have nothing to do with like player to player contact or something like that. Um, I should say you're going to see here the second bullet was impeding a, with contact is another flavor of impeding. That's essentially getting in front of somebody and like stopping or slowing down, or getting in their way. That is actually a direct free kick also. But in this case, the list of indirect free kicks, you can get in somebody's line and slow down, but not, really deliberately slam the brakes and stop them. That would be an indirect free kick. Dangerous manner. So the most common ones here are going to be the high kick. If an opponent's head is somewhere in the vicinity, if somebody's really limber and can kick their foot really high and get the ball, but there was no opponent anywhere nearby, that's somebody may yell high kick, but nobody was in danger, right? So there has to be an opponent involved for it to be dangerous. Now, it doesn't necessarily have to be another player that's dangerous. So the case of if the ball is on the ground and a kid wants to keep playing the ball while they're on the ground as opposed to trying to get up, that's putting themselves in danger and kind of just messing up things for all the players that are trying to play the right way with their feet. They would rather have this person get off the ground and out of the way. Um, Standing in front of the goalkeeper when they're trying to release the ball. So at U10, there won't be any punting, but there can be, distribution. Really, you probably won't see this because the kids will be retreating behind the build out line, and so this probably won't come into play very much. And then we'll get into the oddballs from the goalkeeper. You will definitely see at least some of these. So here's an example of dangerous play. Like I said, the foot's kind of near the head. One way to kind of judge dangerous play is if you kind of wince, or definitely if the blue player, if they look like they were going to come in and head the ball, but then they see this leg going up and then they decide not to head the ball. The fact that the red person, did this high kick influenced the ability of blue to play the ball. So that you would want to punish. Impeding. So here kind of shows, red's trying to stop blue from getting to the ball. If they were doing it just by slowing down so their goalkeeper can get it, that would be an indirect free kick. You probably will see that. And so if the ball's rolling to the goalkeeper and the red person kind of slows down in front of blue, you should go ahead and award an indirect free kick there. For it to be legal, the red player needs to get all the way up to the ball to be considered within playing distance of it, where they could stick their leg out and touch that ball. And once they do that and follow it right up to their goalkeeper, then it would be legal and not a problem. That you will never see at U10 if your ARs and you are doing your job and saying behind the blue line. All right. So here are the four indirect free kicks that can happen from goalie stuff. So one of them is if the goalie hangs onto the ball for more than 6 seconds, you're never going to be draconian about this. You would never really call this for an indirect free kick. What you want to do is just, you know, at the little kid level, 5, 6 seconds in, start saying, "Come on, goalie, let's get it back out there." We're just trying to minimize time wasting, but at that age level, it's not really worth, penalizing with a actual indirect free kick. If the goalie were to roll the ball out to say like one of their teammates and the teammate, who knows what, isn't paying attention or something, and then the goalie ran back after that ball and then picked it up, still in the penalty area. So, if it was out of the penalty area, it would be handling and a direct free kick inside the penalty area. They had the ball, they released it, and then they went and grabbed it before anybody else touched it. That's sort of the goalie's version of double touching. That is an indirect free kick. And then either receiving it from a kick or from a throw in, if they pick it up, that would be an indirect free kick. I don't think I've ever seen a throw into the keeper, but there's plenty of kicks back to the keeper, and inexperienced keepers will pick it up. They might hear, don't pick it up from their coach, but it'll happen anyway. So there's other variants that you'll see at advanced levels, like if somebody kicks the ball back, and then the ball goes outside the penalty area, and the goalie then walks out to the ball, dribbles it back in, and picks it up. That's still essentially the same thing. The kick doesn't have to go straight to the goalie. The main point is not to kick it back to the goalie so then they can now punt or something like that. So I think that's it on indirects. So I guess the one thing I'll just say is procedurally, remember that when you do an indirect free kick, you got to hold one of your arms up uh, for as long as you are convinced that there's a chance that the ball could be scored. That usually doesn't last very long. So if they do the indirect free kick and it shoots off at some angle, it's either going to hit a player or go out of bounds. And so you can lower your arm and save your arm strength. It is an interesting thing that if you forget to hold your arm up on an indirect free kick and they were to score, you have to disallow that goal. And there will be plenty of people mad at you. So raising your arm and possibly yelling, okay, it's indirect, will do yourself some favors. Any questions on indirect and direct? Okay, so we're going to test people's knowledge. I'm hoping that these quiz things are kind of one of the more fun parts of these sessions that I do. So let's see how things go here. Can't tell, I have no idea how it's showing up on your guys' monitors. So I'm trying to make sure that it shows up large. All right, so I'm going to try and do this fast. So you guys can answer. Should pop up on your phone or whatever. Okay, we got 7 people online, so I want to see as many people voting as we can. I think I'll preface that, doing these quizzes, I think is the best way of learning. And I actually have done so many of these to train myself because it's the best I can think of putting yourself in a game situation, making a decision and then seeing what the answer was after the fact. And because when I screw up, then I tend to choose better after the fact. All right, we got 4 people. Maybe some folks are still trying to figure out how to do the poll. All right, so I do end and then share. So you should all hopefully see what the results are. The correct answer is a DFK. Again, that's that shoulder charge. But if they did it, not close enough to the ball, or they did it in the wrong position, like in the player's back or whatever, then that's a direct free kick. Okay, so here's the next one. We're up to four. Where are my fifth, sixth, and seventh attendees?
Hey, my name is Mike, and I can see I see the options pop up, but I have to close it to be able to see what the actual question is. Now I don't know how to make my selection for answers come back.
Oh, I see. I can certainly try to like read the question and the choices,
Well, so I
if
see the
that'll
question
help.
now, but the
Oh,
option to pick, like the options are like so I see the question and the
right. You
options, but
just
then
can't
there's like a
answer anymore.
yeah, I can't answer anymore.
I see. So should I wait longer to let you read the question and then pop up the poll maybe? We'll
I
try
mean,
that
it's not
next.
necessary. I can still participate, but I don't.
Well, I think
You
that'll be
know,
fine. I mean, yeah, I'm still learning Zoom. I never had to do any of this during the pandemic. So, all right. So
yeah.
here we go. Looks like we're still kind of 50-50. The result here is direct free kick. So remember, this is just a kid out in the middle of the field grabbing the ball. That's definitely not soccer, and so that's a direct free kick. Um, Sometimes they're embarrassing things. Again, I should have caveated with the handball. Self protection of your face or your chest or stuff like that. We do not want to call a handball on that if it looks very protective, because kids are going to instinctually do that. So we don't want to be penalizing them for anything like that, especially girls with their chests and stuff like that. So, yeah, speak up if there's any questions. Okay. Holds an opponent. So A is direct, B is indirect. All right, looks like everybody did good there. That is a direct free kick. So grabbing somebody's arm or tugging their jersey is definitely player to player contact and is a direct free kick. All right, impeding the progress of an opponent but without bumping into them. A direct, B indirect. All right, outstanding. Everybody got that one. Indirect.
What would that honestly be like, impeding progress without making contact?
You'll see it all the time with a defender chasing the ball that's going to their goalkeeper. Um, they don't want the attacker to get to the ball and then potentially have a one-on-one with the goalkeeper, so they get in front of the attacker as the ball is rolling to their goalie, and they're slowing down the attacker so that the goalie just is the only person who's going to be able to get the ball. So you can see
Okay.
that that's kind of unfair. So if that defender wants to protect that ball, they have to do it within playing distance of the ball, which means literally a couple feet, right? Like if you think they can stretch their leg out and touch that ball, then they're within playing distance and they're not really, impeding. They're literally like just protecting the ball, and that's legal. But if they get in front of somebody's way and essentially kind of ease off the gas and slow down, probably like, some people have experienced on the freeway when someone's messing with you.
Okay, thank
That's what
you.
you want to penalize. Impeding with contact. A direct, B indirect. So looks like you guys all got this one. The most egregious version of this I ever saw was one of my son's uh, teammates was flying up the sideline, and this was like 16-year-old boys, and some defender was kind of watching him come, and then at the last minute sidestepped in front, sort of like the NBA players do, trying to take a charge, and it was a brutal collision. And the guy who stepped in front, got called for the foul and the yellow card. So you don't normally see with contact too much, but another form of impeding with contact is almost holding. Like if you see somebody slowing down and then also sticking their arms out to make an even bigger barrier so the person behind them can't try to run around. If that attacker runs into that arm, then you can go ahead and say, look, you were doing more than just slowing down. You were throwing your arms out to try and really, make sure they couldn't get there. So well done there. Jumps at an opponent. A direct, B indirect. Remember, like any opponent to opponent stuff is almost always direct. Okay, so yep, for the few folks who put indirect, just remember, like when in doubt, if it was player to player, um, even if it didn't make contact for a lot of those fouls, like you know trips or striking, player on player is almost always going to be a direct free kick. Kick or attempt to kick. All right, looks like everybody's got that one. Offside, just to throw you guys off. All right, most of you got B. Yeah, offside is indirect free kick. So as the center referee, when you see your AR raise up their flag and then indicate where on the field, you're going to make sure the ball gets spotted in the right spot, and then you're going to have to, hold your arm up. Sometimes it gets tired because they can't decide where they want to kick it, and then, like I told you, as long as that ball is not really going towards the goal, then you can just immediately put your arm down. Thankfully, they changed that rule recently, or not that too far back, so don't need to get needlessly tired holding our arms up. All right, a player taking a free kick or a kickoff touches the ball a second time just with their foot. Come on, number 6. Maybe they got distracted. All right, so yes, most of you got it. This is a indirect free kick, so-called double touch. It can happen on a kickoff, a free kick. It also can happen on other things like a corner kick if somebody just randomly tapped it and then started dribbling, or if a throw in, they threw it in and then were the first person to kick the ball. So there's a whole bunch of these double touch scenarios. The one area that's a little weird that has no such issue as the dropped ball. The drop ball is one of those weird things where you can just dribble the ball as soon as the ref gives it to you. The one thing you can't do from a drop ball is score directly. So it is kind of, it's got its own indirect rule in that you can't score directly, but you can dribble. All right, plays in a dangerous manner. So hopefully I didn't confuse anybody when I said, almost everything player to player is a issue. Some of them don't require contact, but again, this is like the high kick or the playing the ball while you're on the ground. No contact is actually made. I mean, if somebody did a high kick and then kicked the other player in the face, well, then you're obviously giving a direct free kick. But if they high kicked the ball and the other player just flinched, but nobody actually got hurt, then it's just going to be an indirect free kick for dangerous play, which, like I said, high kicks or playing on the ground. I will say, you I've seen plenty of refs, and then where if someone's on the ground and they kick, I'm usually just like saying, "Get up, get up, get up." So you don't have to feel too bad there, but parents and other people will definitely want you to be calling this on a high kick and not letting those go unnoticed because you want to kind of be teaching the kids, and that's a dangerous enough situation that it warrants calling a foul. How about pushing? Yeah, this one's pretty easy, and you all got it fast.
I have a quick question.
Yeah.
This is going to sound maybe like a stupid question, but the physical kick of a direct free kick means that they can just shoot directly, and is an indirect free kick meaning they have to kick it to somebody else, and then what's it?
Yep, that's it exactly. The only other thing I'll add to that, though, is that it doesn't necessarily have to be a teammate. Like, if you award an indirect free kick inside the penalty area, like say for one of those goalkeeper infractions, like if they pass it back to the goalkeeper and he picks it up, now the attackers get a free kick in the penalty area, so they're very close to the goal. Plus, everybody's got to be, the 10 yards away. So sometimes they end up being on the goal line. Some players and coaches teach people to blast the shot at the goal, even though it can't go directly in, because there's a reasonable chance it's going to just bounce off of someone's leg or side or whatever and then go in the goal. It just has to touch another player. It doesn't have to be a teammate or anything like that. But so that's kind of the technicality, but you've got it right exactly.
And so the ball is put in a specific place versus like a dropped ball where they just like drop it where they're playing and keep going.
The only specific spot, is a penalty kick. So if there's an indirects and directs, you basically, the referee chooses where the kick is going to take place based on where you think the foul was. So if somebody did a high kick, at a certain spot, you just go as close to that spot on the field as you think is required. I mean, precision's not really that important. And so, like in the case of the goalkeeper picking up the ball from a teammate, you would know generally where the goalkeeper picked up the ball and just let the indirect free kick from that spot.
I have a kind of an add-on question with that. Something inside of the penalty box wouldn't be a penalty kick?
For directs, yes. For indirects, they do not go to the penalty mark. So yeah, that I guess is a little confusing, but a direct free kick foul in the penalty area definitely uses the penalty spot, but indirect free kicks are from the spot of the foul. So the penalty kicks are only used for those kind of a player hurting a player foul.
Okay, so a goalie picking a ball up that he shouldn't have picked up would be an indirect free kick, so it wouldn't be a penalty kick.
Correct.
Ooh, my son's a goalie, and he got tagged with a penalty kick for that last weekend.
Yeah, I mean, people are not going to get it right
Yeah,
all the time, and even
yeah.
though I'm an advanced ref now, I certainly make some mistakes. So, yep, it's frustrating. I see stuff happen to my daughter all the time from referees from other areas where I'm like, ugh, but you just got to bite your tongue.
Oh yeah.
If you have
Apparently,
something that happens in the keeper's area, when do you form the wall versus when do you not have them form the wall?
sure. Um, so it shouldn't be the referee's job to give any instructions whatsoever. So on any free kick, whether it's indirect or direct, you are giving the attacking team a free kick, and strategically, it's the player's decision to put that ball, where you say it should go, and kick the ball as fast as possible to catch the defense off, not being ready, versus the coach saying, 10 yards, 10 yards, and it's kind of dumb. Like there's no reason to wait for a wall to be set up. The only time a referee needs to interject is if the kicking player basically says, I need 10 yards. Or if you notice that the defending players are just standing well within 10 yards and are clueless about what they should be doing, hopefully they're not just being jerks. If that happens, then the referee needs to say, okay, we're going on my whistle. So you're essentially saying you can no longer free kick at your leisure. You have to say, we're waiting on my whistle now. And then you would back up the wall. The proper technique, or the nice technique that's less adversarial, is to basically pace off the 10 yards and then, say, hey, gentlemen, join me here, as opposed to like walking up in their face and making hand motions to say back up or whatever. And then once they're at their 10 yards, then you kind of go back to where the kicker is and, again, say on my whistle, and then go ahead and give the toot, and then they'll kick it. So, yeah, the wall is not a given right or anything like that. They can kick as fast as they want and prevent the D from being able to set up the wall. But if somebody is, basically anywhere from 1 yard to 7 yards away from the ball and they're staying there, then you may as well interject and say, okay, back up, guys, wait for my whistle. Does that make sense?
Yes. Okay, but with that, do you mark off steps from the goal, or is the ball placed at the point of the foul and then you mark off steps for the wall, so to speak?
Yeah, the second one. So you basically, there's a foul, you blow the whistle, you kind of figure out where on the field the kid, that got hurt or whatever fell down, and then you kind of ask for the players to throw the ball back to you, and then you put the ball down at that spot. And then as soon as the ball's down on that spot, theoretically they could go, right? Like I said, but after you spot that ball, you kind of want to stand next to the ball so that the player isn't like inching the ball closer to the goal. And then you eye the defense. And if the defense is far enough away, then there's no issue. A lot of kids think there needs to be some sort of whistle or something on a kick or a corner kick, but they're not. So I usually just like shrug my hands, like, what are you waiting for? Or whatever hand signal you want to use to say you can kick whenever you're ready. Yeah, even the indirect free kicks, the only nuance, back to the person who asked about positioning, like that goalkeeper offense, if for some reason, say like the goalkeeper caught a pass back all the way back in the goal area, which is the smaller 6 yard box instead of the 18-yard one, you don't restart an indirect free kick inside that smaller box. So it would be anywhere on the outer, like the front line, excuse me, of that goal area. So there won't be any indirect free kicks from like the 2 yard line, for instance. Questel said somebody had a hand up. I'm not looking at a participant list, so just hopefully you can either type the question or just unmute and.
Yeah, that was a while ago. They acknowledged it, or it was acknowledged.
All right, I forget where we were here. Maybe I didn't even start the quiz, but now you all see the answer. So if you see an injury, you stop the ball, stop play rather. Make sure you do your best to, like, before you go attend to the player, figure out who's got the ball, because that's who you want to give it back to, and you'll be a little embarrassed after the fact. You can sometimes cover your butt if you forget by giving it to the team that had that player that kind of got injured, but that's not really what the law would say. The ball should go to whoever kind of was, had possession of it when you stopped play, because that's otherwise you're kind of taking away the opportunity, and that shouldn't be the case. All right, get back to quiz time. Oopsie daisy, I didn't mean to do that. All right, so in case your screen got covered, while punting the ball, the goalkeeper is standing inside the penalty area, but still holding the ball in their hands when the ball has wholly crossed the line. So would you A, warn them and make it a DFK if it happens again? B, just give the opponents a DFK? C, ignore it? Or D, indirect? Got two people still mulling it over. Take the plunge. All right, guess we're not going to get there. All right, most people got it. At this level, while the letter of the law says direct free kick, because while the goalkeeper is standing in the penalty area, if it's in their hands and the ball is out over the line, then that's a handling offense. It's the ball is what matters, not the goalkeeper's feet. But at the young level, we'd want to just go ahead and, like, as an AR, this is actually more of an AR job, is to yell at the keeper, hey, you went over the line that time, don't do it again. And that way you've given them that teaching moment. But if they continue to persist, then the second time, feel free to lift the flag and make them do a DFK. And it's one of the funny stories that my daughter and I joke about when she was ARing and didn't give the warning. It just went straight to the DFK, and I was mentoring her from behind, and I was like, "Oh, you're vicious," and so I continued to tease her about that.
So even with I get the, or I guess my question is, why a direct free kick versus indirect free kick, even though they're outside the penalty area?
Well, so the goalie is the one person who can't be called for a handball, but only if they're in the penalty area. So the only nuance here is that it's really just where the ball is that matters, and not the goalkeeper. So if the goalkeeper is holding the ball and then gets too close to that front line before they, release it to one of their teammates, and the ball is essentially across the line and still in their hands, that is now they're not the goalkeeper anymore. The ball is outside the penalty area and they are touching it. So it's a handball, just like it would be if any other person on the field was holding it. So you just got to think more. It's about where the ball is, not really where the goalkeeper is. So they are the goalkeeper. So if the ball is in the penalty area, they're good. But if the ball is outside the penalty area, even the goalie can't touch it.
Okay. So that's almost like if the ball stopped right outside the penalty area and they leaned over and picked it up.
Correct. The only way for them to legally get that ball is to use their foot to backpedal it, the last 2 feet, and then they can pick it up.
Got it.
Sorry, I probably launched the poll too fast for those of you on phones. The goalkeeper controls the ball with their hands for more than 6 seconds before releasing it. A, give them a warning, do an indirect free kick if it happens excessively. B, indirect free kick. C, ignore it. D, direct free kick. All right, awesome. Let's see, 5 of you got it real fast. So again, the letter of the law would say B, but we're just going to go with A, give them a warning. Like I said, no one's going to call it right at 6 seconds. I mean, if the goalie's holding on to it for 10, 15 seconds and you've already yelled at them once or twice of like, come on, get it in play, get it in play, then at that point, yeah, go ahead and issue the indirect free kick because you gave them plenty of margin and we're telling them what to do. Okay, no problem, Kristen. Goalkeeper touches the ball again with their hands after they released it, like they rolled it to a teammate before the ball had been touched by anybody else. A, direct, B, indirect. They're still in the penalty area.
No, you've already had a lot of cheating. Thank you for asking, and no.
I hear somebody trying to help somebody on the computer. Okay, so we had a mixed bag here. Yeah, I should have clarified that the ball is still in the penalty area, so they're allowed to grab it, but it's an indirect free kick. So this is one of those 4 things that the goalkeeper can draw an indirect free kick for. Okay, this one I think we've covered. I mean, this is straight shot back to the goalkeeper. That's indirect. Let's see. Yep. So here's another tricky one. So we'll do this one. The goalkeeper punts the ball well outside the penalty area, but they let go of the ball when the ball was above the penalty area line. So, what this looks like is it's in their hands. They let go of the ball while the ball's floating across the penalty area line. But then where they kick it is like, a full yard or 2 in front of the line. A is direct, B indirect, C continue play. Okay, looks like we got our 5. So the answer here is it's fine. Remember that the lines on the field are part of whatever area they define. So the line itself of the penalty area is part of the penalty area. So when their hands come off of the sides of the ball and it's floating over the penalty, I mean, it's not floating, it's, at the time it's let go, it was over the penalty area line, the ball's still moving forward because of the way they're punting, then they were not actually touching it with their hands outside the penalty area. So sometimes it looks really weird, like the punt is so far outside the penalty area, you're like, geez, was that okay? Well, if they let go of the ball while it was still over or behind the line, then it's no problemo. All right, this is another one of those obvious ones. If they throw it in right to the goalkeeper and they pick it up, that's a no-no. And I told you about this. If the referee fails to signal an indirect, unfortunately, you have to make them retake it. Okay, so I'm glad we spent time on that because it seems like I didn't really do a beta test and see how long the quiz was going to take, but I hope that it was a good way to try and, uh, see what you know, what you don't know, what to brush up on from looking at the rules. We do only have about 10 minutes left, so I don't want to hold people long. So I'm going to skip some of the stuff that I had intended on covering, and I'll just defer that to some other offerings. Let's see here. I guess one thing I want to try to emphasize, the U10 fields are so small that you almost feel like you don't have to do things by the book, and the centers may, not really feel like they need the ARs, but it's good to view it as a, proving ground and a training ground. And so, as a referee, as some of you hopefully start to step into the center position at the U10 level, it's a very good habit. And even I, was not very good at this a couple of years back, despite 7 years in. Look at your AR every dead ball, including goals. Like I've had instances where I've already signaled pointing to the center circle, meaning I've given a goal, but then I see my AR still standing there signaling offside, and then I feel like a jackass. So it's always good to look at the ARs because other things besides an offside might be a latent foul. This probably becomes more prevalent at the older levels. If you've got players like jabbing at each other behind the ref, you need to make sure you get that taken care of. If they feel like they're getting away with it, that's not good. And in general, I hear funny stories where if ARs are being totally ignored, somebody has like just decided to like sit down, and then it was like a full like 15 minutes, and then the ref came over and was like, "What are you doing?" And they said, "Well, you weren't looking at me, so I figured why should I bother?" So be sensitive to that. Always nice to give the AR a thumbs up. As far as ARs, you should be doing the same. Don't be in a rush to like signal uh, the direction for throw-ins. That's everybody's temptation to try and do it fast and seem like you're very on top of it. But it's really good if you can look at the referee every throw-in. The referee can, I kind of skipped it up top, subtle signals down low. So some refs will kind of like put an open palm next to their hip, which is not very obvious to, everybody else out there. But if the AR is looking for it, they can see like, okay, I think, or the ref says he thinks it's that way. I also thought it was that way, and then try to go up together if at all possible in the same direction. The AR can do the same sort of thing. Like if you think it went out for the attacker, your flag's normally in your left hand. Well, if you switch the flag to the right hand and potentially kind of just barely start to hold it up away from your waist or thigh, then you're kind of giving the center ref a hint that you think it went that way. Now, if the center referee just flat out doesn't do any signaling at all, then he's pretty much relying on you. So at that point, you got to infer that that's what they need and go ahead and indicate a direction. But otherwise, we just want to try and do what nonverbal communicating we can between the two to make sure we don't have different signals, because then both teams get mad because we're not saying the same thing. So with that, I guess I was just going to throw this up in case anybody had any questions about game card note taking and how to fill it out. Otherwise, I will just yield the rest of the time to open Q&A, and I'll ask everybody to do like one last poll just to give me some feedback on the session tonight. So any questions burning as before you head into Saturday's matches or possibly Friday nights?
I had a question,
Oh,
which
sorry.
is, what is the best way, I guess, to just spot fouls? Like there's sometimes where you'll see 4 or 5 players running red, blue, and then one of them just falls,
Right.
and that's it. That's all you see. And like at the U7, U8 level, it's really normal for kids to be by themselves and fall with
Sure.
no
Yep.
impedance. And even at like U12, like it happens. So, I mean, is it just a positioning thing, or
In
like a
part,
lot of
yeah.
times things happen right in front of you and you just like, I'm just not aware of it. Like,
Yep. So I guess I'll give you some tips. And yeah, I know foul recognition was one of the things people said they really wanted some help on. So we'll definitely try to focus on something that topic at another point. U7 and 8, yes, they're falling all over the place, but it's usually just lack of balance and a normal amount of bumping that I would say, takes place. So I really have not seen that many fouls, but you occasionally can get a brute of a kid who does a little bit more bumping, so you'll know it. At the U10 level, you start to see more normal soccer compared to U7, U8, and so you do have to start paying attention a little bit more. The one tip that I would pass along is they say that as far as where you should be, besides they always want you like what 10 to 15 yards from play. I would say don't be too close, because I blew that just last weekend, I think, where they kind of surprised me and did a big crossing route right in front of me. And instead of me backing up, I kind of let them go within 5 yards of me, or probably less. And there was a fall. And to me, I thought they just clipped their legs and went down. Well, then as soon as I went to go look at the player, she already had a huge welt on her shin above her shin guard. And I was like, oh, there's no way that was incidental. Like the other player must have swung at the leg. So I felt really bad. So, distance is part of it, but if you have to choose between angle and distance, they always say angle is more important than distance. So when you're running, you should try to find the way to look in between players first and then try to get closer if you need to. Because if you're close, but the, players are in a line, then you can't see someone pushing or pulling a jersey or whatever. So you kind of want to do the best you can to get that angle so you're seeing between bodies. Other than that, I think a lot of it's watching, videos and just game experience, like what did you see as an AR? What did the ref call? Or you having to make your own calls? It's kind of hard to watch. Like there aren't a ton, there's lots of professional videos out there, but those aren't that helpful. You can find some decent fouls videos on YouTube. They're usually like 1 minute, just random a parent, putting up something like, did you think this was a foul or not? And I have some of those that I can show. But that bit of like angle versus in priority of over distance is the one thing I guess I would say. Also looking for unnatural movements, right? Like if a player's running at a certain speed and then all of a sudden they like slowed down, even if you didn't see something, you kind of, how did that happen? They must have gotten their jersey tugged. And so you can kind of, they would say don't call something you didn't see, but it's very, very hard for us to see everything. So you just got to decide what's the right balance for you. Sorry if that was long-winded.
nope, good explanation. Thanks.
Anybody else out there?
Where can we find these after they've concluded to look back over them?
I will do what I did before and like send out the link to the recorded session. So it won't be the slides per se, but you can skip around through the video, I think, and see the slides. Yeah, hopefully everybody got the link that I sent out after like the pre-week 1 video. I hope that worked. Okay, well, hearing nobody else, hour is done. So hope you guys all enjoy your games this weekend.
Thank you.
Thank
All
you.
right, thank you very much.
Thanks.